Hello and welcome to the Inside Pitch debut podcast with me, your host, the show noob. And if you've seen the thumbnail, if you've seen the title over there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're watching and or listening, I believe YouTube is the only platform that I have a video podcast for. But I appreciate those of you who are listening, tuning in today. We are going to go over the NL East projections by Pecota, and we're going to see if that wins and loss really makes sense. Is it fair? Is it a fair rating? And what can a team do to be better than that rating? What could go wrong and have it be even worse? We're going to start off at the NL East. The Washington Nationals are projected 58.1 wins and 103.9 losses, which is rather low in my opinion. I know they won more games last year. They won 71 games last year and 91 losses. Now, maybe they outperformed a little bit. Maybe they did a lot better than people thought they would. And to be honest, I think I am in that boat as well. I did not think they were going to be that great last year. And they still weren't, but I thought they were going to be a lot worse. But they surprised quite a bit of people. And even looking at the record now, or the last couple of days, it surprised me I didn't realize they won 71 games last year. It's nice. They also didn't really lose anyone in free agency, anyone of super importance, Carl Edwards Jr., Michael Chavis, Dominic Smith, Chad Kuhl, Corey Dickerson, and Victor Arano were their key departures last year. So no big names really lost right there. They brought in Joey Gallo. They brought in Jesse Winker. They brought in Nick Senzel. All have some high upside to them. They did not bring anyone of note on the pitching staff, which is something they really lack, in my opinion. Their starting rotation is rather thin. But quickly, let's just kind of go through the lineup. The projected lineup for opening day 2024 via Fangraphs is CJ Abrams at shortstop, Lane Thomas in right field, Joey Gallo at first base, Joey Meneses at the DH spot, Jesse Winker in left field, Keibert Ruiz behind the plate, Nick Senzel over at third base, Luis Garcia Jr. over at second base, and Victor Robles in center field. And on the bench, they have Riley Adams, Carter Kieboom, Ildiarmo Vargas, I believe is how I pronounce his name. Correct me in the comments if you want to, or if I'm wrong. If I'm right, tell me good job. Thank you. Stoney Garrett. I probably mispronounced that one, though. And the starting rotation projected to be Josiah Gray, Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, Patrick Corbin, and Trevor Williams. In the bullpen, the top two of that bullpen is going to be Kyle Finnegan and Hunter Harvey, followed by Tanner Rainey, Jordan Weems, Robert Garcia, Dylan Floro, Jose Ferrer, and Joan Adon. But these are just Fangraphs projections, and bullpens are just so volatile that it's tough to project a bullpen. It really is, heading into the season when you're still in spring training. But what can go right for the Nationals to win more than 58 games? CJ Abrams taking a step forward, that could go right. He had an even better second half last year. He popped 18 home runs. He had 245, 300 off the top of my 300 on base off the top of my head. I just did a video that had a little bit to do with CJ Abrams, so that is why I know that off the top of my head. By the way, go check it out over on the Show Noob YouTube channel, the YouTube channel, The Show Noob. Okay, I will shut up about that. Thank you. If CJ Abrams can take a step forward from that, he's only 20. He's going to be 23 for most of the season. It's going to be his second full year. There's absolutely a world where he has a better year, where he improves. He was brought over in the Juan Soto trade back in August of 22, and he was one of the top prospects for San Diego. And there's just a lot to like here. If he can improve on what he did last season, I think that could be a tremendous step forward. And Lane Thomas, he had quite a good year as well last year. I believe he went 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases. If he could do something like that again this year, then that would be a big step forward. Let me just fact check that. I think he did. I think he went 2020. Let's see. Did he go 2020? He did. He 28 home runs and exactly 20 stolen bases. His OPS plus was 114, which is 14% better than league average. League average is 100 even. That's what that means for those of you who are unfamiliar with OPS plus. Just a fancy way of measuring a hitter's overall ability compared to the rest of the league. So Lane Thomas can do something like that again. That'd be great. Joey Gallo, if you can get 30 home runs out of him, 30 home, which I mean, if he has 600 at bats or 500 at bats, more than likely, he's going to get 30 home runs, although he will strike out 200 times. But if he can give you those home runs, there's value in that. I think his OPS plus was still over 100 last year. Let me just go back over to Baseball Reference. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, I know, let me know if this jumping around screens is a little bit difficult for you. Those of you who are listening, you do not have to worry about that. Appreciate you listening. He hit 20 home runs last year in 282 at bats and a 101 OPS plus. OPS was 741. That is not as bad as it looks on the surface. On the surface, it looks bad. I think he hit 177. So if that happens, if those three things happen, I think the Nationals have a better chance of hitting the over on that 58 wins. That's not even to mention they have James Wood and Dylan Cruz in the minors just waiting to take some of these outfield spots that are taken on these projections by Jesse Winker and Lane Thomas. Even Lane Thomas, he could play a little bit. I think he plays a little bit of different positions, or maybe even throw him in the DH. I think Dylan Cruz and James Wood, they could provide a great spark to this team if they are popping off in the minors and if they get the call. That is no guarantee whatsoever. That is just something that could happen, and hopefully it does. I do think off the top of my head, I think Lane Thomas has gotten at bats or has gotten playing time somewhere else in the field, like third base. But throw him at the DH. Joey Gallo can play the outfield. He's still a fantastic, or he can play third as well. I know he has. I don't know what the most recent time that he's played third base, but we don't need to worry about that right now. And on the pitching side of things, what can go right is Josiah Gray and Mackenzie Gore taking steps forward. They have both been highly touted prospects. Josiah Gray with the Dodgers, Mackenzie Gore with the Padres, both high upside, and they got a lot of playing time last year. So they're starting to enter hopefully their prime. They're starting to maybe get a little bit of experience under their belt. Josiah Gray is going to be 26 all year. Mackenzie Gore, 25. Those are semi-young dudes. And the way pitchers age is a little bit different than hitters, in my opinion. So experience means more, I think. They're going to get strikeouts. Mackenzie Gore is going to get strikeouts. Josiah Gray, not as much. But if they can keep the ball in the zone a little bit, limit the walks, that is what really hurt Josiah Gray. That could be a big, big deal for the Washington Nationals. And they just need some of the bullpen to step up a little bit. The bullpens are so volatile. If Kyle Finnegan and Hunter Harvey did what they did last year, that's going to be decent. And maybe have a couple other guys step it up a little bit. Dylan Floro's been decent at times. I think Joan Adon has some high upside, high potential. Jose Ferrer, they're a little bit younger. Hopefully they can step it up and they can have very, very meaningful innings back in that bullpen. And what could go wrong? What could go wrong for the Nationals? CJ Abrams not taking a step forward. Joey Gallo not finding a rhythm and doing even worse than he has been. If he hits 177 but doesn't give you any power, then that's very, very bad. You gotta provide some power if you're gonna have a low average, low on base. But I mean, his on base was a lot, like over 100 points higher than his average. So define low. If we define low right here, I would say under 300 on base percentage for a guy who hits 200. Maybe that's just off the top of my head. Jesse Winker, maybe he doesn't find it again. He gets cut. Nick Senzel, same thing. He hasn't really found it. He has not been good. Maybe he doesn't find it or just does terribly, and he stays there. And another thing that could go wrong is James Wood and Dylan Cruz not progressing in the minors. That is very bad, not just for this year, with the hopes of them maybe making their major league debuts, but is bad in the long run. You don't want to see your top prospects have any setbacks developmental wise. And what else could go wrong is Patrick Corbin does even worse than he has been doing. Mackenzie Gore and Josiah Gray, they have worse years than last year. I know they had decent ERAs. Josiah Gray had an ERA under 4, but his FIP was almost 5. Mackenzie Gore had a low 4 ERA, but also his FIP was almost 5. So if their ERAs are going to be closer to their FIPs, then that is not the best thing that you want to see for the Nationals. And honestly, I think it would be a stretch for them to get under 58 wins. I really do. But crazier things have happened. Crazier things have happened. And all those things going poorly could be what leads them to an under 58 win season. Also, Keibert Ruiz not taking a step forward. That would be very bad as well. Now, again, I want to just preface that all of these things happening all at once, very rare thing, but all the good things happening at once also could be a very, very rare thing. So it's likely that maybe a couple of each happen. I hope all the good things happen. I'm going to say that for every team. I hope all the good things happen because I just love baseball. I love when everyone plays up to their potential. Just a baseball dude. There's not a team that I don't like. There might be teams that I like less than others, but there's not a team out there that I dislike. And I really hope those of you who don't know me and you're listening to my voice for the first time, I don't want y'all to know who my favorite team is by the way I talk about them. I'm actually not going to say my favorite team name for hopefully quite some time. And maybe I've accidentally given it away, or maybe I will accidentally give it away. But let me know. Let me know in the comments. Like, guess my favorite team. Guess my favorite team. I know we've only gone over the Washington Nationals for about 5 minutes, so it's going to be hard to gather that from what I'm saying right now. But throw a guess out there, those of you who don't know me. Anyway, who's next on the list? Miami Marlins. They are projected to win 80 games and lose 82 games. Honestly, I think that is a bit high. I think that is a little bit high for my tastes. I think they're going to be closer to the maybe 77 wins, 78, 79. I mean, that's barely lower than 80 wins, but I don't think they're going to be as good as last year, and I wish they would. Oh, but what did I say about the Nationals? I'm going to say they win 70 games. I'm going to say they win 70 games. But anyway, Miami Marlins, I just don't think they're going to be that. I don't think they're going to be better than last year. Because when we look at who they lost Jorge Soler, big time power. They lost David Robertson, pretty decent relief pitcher. Matt Moore, same thing, decent lefty. They lost guys like Johnny Cueto, Yuli Gurriel, although maybe not as impressive on the field, but just as a guidance, as a leadership aspect, Johnny Cueto, Yuli Gurriel on the older side of things can provide that veteran leadership. Same thing with Gene Segura and Joey Wendell, who are gone. Who did they bring in though? They brought in Tim Anderson to play shortstop, and they brought in Trey Mancini on a minor league deal. That I would love for that to pan out. I would love for Trey Mancini to get back to form before his illnesses, which is I'm just so happy he's healthy. That's what I'm really happy about. But let's go through the lineup real quick. The Miami Marlins lineup from top to bottom: Luis Arias, second base; Tim Anderson as the shortstop; Josh Bell at first base; Jake Berger is at third; Jazz Chisholm in center field; Brian De La Cruz in left field; Jesus Sanchez in right; Avisaíl Garcia as the DH; and Nick Fortes as the catcher. We got Christian Betancourt, John Birdie, Vidal Brujan, and Nick Gordon on the bench projected. The rotation: Jesus Luzardo, Yuri Perez, Braxton Garrett, Edward Cabrera, and Trevor Rogers. For those of you who are listening, this is all via Fangraphs. In the bullpen, we have Tanner Scott, Andrew Nardi, AJ Puck, JT Chargois, Anthony Bender, George Soriano, Ryan Weathers, and Sixto Sanchez, who I refuse to believe is a real person. I want Sixto Sanchez to succeed. That's just a little joke in my head because I haven't seen him in years, what feels like. I saw him in 2020 dicing up lineups. That was awesome. Would love to see that happen again. But what can go right for these Marlins? Luis Arias, if he keeps doing what he's doing, if he has a year like he did last year, maybe closer to the first half, Luis Arias, he doesn't have much pop. But if you got a high average, you're getting on base a lot, there's value in that. There is absolute value in that. I just wish his on base percentage last year was a little bit higher. You would expect a guy hitting 350 to maybe get on base at a 400 clip. So maybe he converts a couple of those outs to walks, possibly. If Tim Anderson can be a little bit better, and by a little bit, I mean a lot better than he was last year. He was horrendous last year, a -2 WAR. There's just no way. I refuse to believe that he has fallen off this sharply. He's 30. He's going to be 31 at some point this year. You just have to think that there's still talent there. I mean, he hit 300 in 2022. Dropping that much, it took him till July, late July, to pop his first home run. There's just not any chance, in my opinion, that he's fallen off that hard. I think he can bounce back. There's been a lot of rumblings about horrible things, or not, maybe not horrible, depending on what you want to call horrible, but just a weird dynamic in that Chicago White Sox clubhouse that maybe he just dreaded going there. I don't know. I have no idea. But anyway, if he can get better, if he can do better than last year, Josh Bell, if he can perform as well as he did when he came over from Cleveland, that is a pretty good bat. That's a great switch hitting bat. He's going to be 31 for most of the year. I like that. I like that. Jake Berger, I love how he broke out last year. I never really knew anything about Jake Berger before last year, but man, I'm a big fan. Did a little research, and he's just dealt with so many injuries to his Achilles. He hit 34 home runs last year. He hit over 300 coming over to the Marlins. Now, I know average is not the end all be all thing. I really like a high average when everything else looks good, if that makes sense. I like a high average when the on base is a lot higher. I like a high average when there's a lot of damage, a lot of extra base hits. And that's basically how that's what I like. I don't know what it is. Jazz Chisholm. We need Jazz Chisholm to be healthy for the full year. For the first time. This will be his fourth year, I believe, as a full-time player. Just need him to stay healthy. And if he does, he's got 30-30 potential written all over him. And you just need Brian De La Cruz and Jesus Sanchez to be reliable. We need them to hit the ball a little bit, hit some home runs here and there, and not play horrible defense out there. Avisail Garcia, he has not lived up to his contract. Literally anything positive out of Avisail Garcia while he plays is a big, big win. I can't imagine he's going to get the most playing time at the DH spot. And as catcher, in the catcher position, you just need some good defense from Fortes and Bethancourt. Anything offensive by those guys, I think, is a huge plus. I even know Christian Bethancourt, didn't he take some time to learn how to pitch, or wasn't he going to be a two-way player out of the bullpen for a little bit? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let me know in the comments, Marlins fans. And as far as the rotation goes, for them to be better than their 80 win projection, Jesus Luzardo, Yuri Perez, and Braxton Garrett, you need those top three to do what they did last year. And getting that from a full season by Yuri Perez, if Yuri Perez does what he did last year for a full season, that's a huge, huge addition to this rotation. And I believe he can not only do that, but I think he could be even better. I think he's a future Cy Young winner. Love watching him pitch. He was just electric when he came up. I just love to see it. Braxton Garrett, he's been really good. The last year, he was amazing. And if Edward Cabrera and Trevor Rogers, if Trevor Rogers gives you what he gave you when he was an all-star, I know he's coming back from injury, so that's very unlikely. But if he's closer to that than what he did in 2022 when he was awful, then that is a huge win. And Edward Cabrera not walking as many batters, having a little bit better control, that'd be a huge win for this rotation. And that would make them one of the best rotations in baseball. And that is not even including Sandy Alcantara, who's going to be out all year. They have Max Meyer waiting in the minors who could do some damage. And man, there's just, I wish the Marlins would have brought in more bats. I really do. Cause this rotation, this bullpen too, with Tanner Scott and AJ Puk, those are two amazing lefties. Anthony Benner's got some potential too. And they've even been talking about making AJ Puk a starter. Talk about an elite rotation if he pans out as a starter. That skill, his skill with the lefty arm is just incredible. Could absolutely be a one of the best rotations in baseball, maybe top five, I think, off the top of my head. What could go wrong to have them get less than 80 wins? Tim Anderson falling even further, Josh Bell not performing up to standards, and Jake Berger regressing from last year, and Jazz Chisholm having the injury bug again. Those things would just be terrible for this lineup. I would hate to see it. I don't want that by any means, because I really want this Marlins team to succeed. I just wish they would have got more bats, more reliable bats I feel like maybe they're planning on more of a 2025, 2026 window of competing. Maybe they just didn't like what they saw in the free agent market. I don't know. I really just I want more for this Marlins team and Marlins fans as my computer goes crazy. I don't those of you watching, I'm sorry about that. It does this sometimes. But anyway, Marlins, I'm going to say they win 77 games. I'm going to say they win 77 games. I do love the rotation, but I just think the offense is killing me. It's killing me. I wish there was just more thump there. And Josh Bell and Jake Berger could be great, but I just don't know. Same thing with Jazz. I just don't know. I can't safely say that they're going to be better than last year, because they finished the year 8 games under 500 after the break, and oh man, I just don't have that much confidence that they can do it. I wish I did. Next, we're going over to the New York Mets, who are projected to win 82.5 games and lose 79.5 games. I feel like right now, that is, my God, my computer's going crazy. I'm sorry. Why is it doing this to me? I'll just edit that out. But going over to the New York Mets, they are projected to win 82.5 games and lose 79.5 games. I think that might be a little bit accurate. You know, they won 75 games last year. Which is crazy to me. It is absolutely crazy to me. I was so scared. Of just the Mets taking the reins and just going through the NL East and the National League in general. But who did they lose? I don't think they lost anyone extremely important. They lost Luis Guillorme, Carlos Carrasco, Eliezer Hernandez, Sam Coonrod, John Curtis, Daniel Vogelbach, Adam Kolarek. Tim LaCastro did sign with them, and Rafael Ortega and Trevor Gott. So nothing crazy. They did not lose anyone incredibly important to this team. Looking at the projected lineup is left fielder Brandon Nimmo, second base Jeff McNeil, shortstop Francisco Lindor, first base Pete Alonso, right field Starling Marte, DH DJ Stewart, catcher is going to be Francisco Alvarez, third base is going to be Brett Beatty, and center fielder Harrison Bader, newly center fielder Harrison Bader. The projected rotation is going to be Jose Quintana, Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, Adrian Hauser, and Tyler McGill, with Kodai Senga just getting hurt, a strained shoulder. I believe it's the posterior capsule. I don't know how long he's going to be out for. And that is unfortunate. I love watching Kodai Senga pitch. The Ghost Fork is just, it's unreal. It's unreal. I feel like every couple days I see Pitching Ninja tweet out something about Kodai Senga's Ghost Fork, and I just have it on repeat, basically. I have it on repeat. But anyway, what can go right for this Mets lineup to get them to more than the projected total, which is 82.5? I believe Pete Alonso just doing what he's doing. Francisco Lindor doing what he's doing. He has had the quietest 30-30-30 season that I've ever seen. 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases, 30 doubles. Just playing amazing defense at shortstop. Somehow he is underrated now, in my opinion. He's one of the more underrated players in baseball compared to his skill, in my opinion. And what they do need is Jeff McNeil to bounce back and have a typical Jeff McNeil season, having an over 300 average, getting on base at a high clip, and popping maybe 15, 20 home runs, something like that. I think that is more than enough to really help this lineup out a ton. Starling Marte, having him bounce back would be absolutely clutch. They need him to bounce back and do what he did a couple years ago. He's a little bit older, and I don't know about it. Francisco Alvarez, if you can get like a 30 home run to maybe even more home run season out of him, then that is amazing. And I absolutely believe he can. He has got some power potential there. He had 25 home runs last year in less than 400 at bats, while only hitting 209 and with a sub 300 on base. There is no way that is what it can be the norm from him. He can hit much better. He can be on base at a 340, 350 clip this year, I believe. And Brett Beatty taking a step forward would be tremendous. I would love that for him. He was on my fantasy team a while ago. As a prospect, it just didn't pan out. I had to go to someone else, unfortunately. But I'm a big Brett Beatty fan. I want him to succeed. And Harrison Bader, if you get any sort of offense at all out of him, he's going to play tremendous defense. You know that. So whatever you get out of him at the plate is going to be a bonus. And he has some, there's some pop in that bat. We've seen glimpses of him just going ham at the plate, having some great stretches. So hopefully that can happen. That can happen. And on the mound, I know Jose Quintana, if he can be reliable, we need these guys to just log innings right here. All these guys have a little bit of upside. Like Sean Manaea, he's shown that he's been capable before, and how he finished last year is a decent sign. And Luis Severino, I wanted him to be so good last year, and he was just miserable in New York. I felt so bad for him. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. He signed a 2-year deal, a 1-year deal, or a 2-year deal? Let me know in the comments. But he could be, if he bounces back, oh man, I would love to see him be up in the voting for comeback player of the year in the NL. I think that would be tremendous. And Edwin Diaz popping off, that'd be amazing. Also I can't even talk, Adam Ottavino and their bullpen. They just need to be reliable. But at the same time, we have heard that this team is planning on a 2025 competing in 2025 is what I'm trying to say. So what does that look like for this team? What does that mean? That means they need to extend Pete Alonso. I am a little bit worried because this is going to be his contract year. And if they want to beat that win total that Pecota projects, they can't trade him away. But at the same time, if they're not going to be able to extend him and they find themselves not in a place where they're competing this year for maybe a wild card spot, maybe even the division, who knows what would take for that to happen, but they would absolutely have to trade him, I think. But I don't want that to happen. I think Pete Alonso should be a Met for life. He's amazing. He seems like he fits great in New York, and I'd love to see him locked up for the long term, finish his career. His long career, it's nowhere even close to being over. I don't know why I said it like that, but give him a 10-year extension. Pay him till he's 40. Give him that. He's going to give you so many home runs. I would love to see that. What could go wrong for this team to lose that below 82.5 games? What I just said about trading Pete Alonso, that could go wrong, depending on what your subjective definition of wrong is in this scenario. Starling Marte not bouncing back. That could be horrendous. Francisco Alvarez not improving. That would be unfortunate. Brett Beatty not improving either. That could be unfortunate. They do have some depth on the bench, though. Omar Narvaez, Mark Vientos, Joey Wendell, and Tyrone Taylor. If that happens, those are serviceable players. We've seen success from all those guys, so they could be nice fill-ins. Edwin Diaz not being the same pitcher he used to be before the injury, that would be horrible. I want to hear the trumpets. I just imagine, like, I said this back when the Mets in 2022, when it looked like they were going to win the division. And I was just like, I would love to see the crowd at Game 7, at Game 7 of the World Series, Edwin Diaz running out of the bullpen with the trumpets. That would be so electric. Oh man. I got chills thinking about it. I really did, not going to lie. But anyway, that's my opinion on the Mets. Let me know in the comments what you think. I think it could go either way. I certainly want a lot of guys to do well. I want everyone to do well. And I want Pete Alonso locked up for life. That's what I want. Let's go over to the Phillies, who are projected to win 84.9 games, 77.1 losses. That feels low to me. And let's just talk real quick about that Zach Wheeler extension. Wow. That I did not really see that coming. Although maybe I should have. I know they wanted to extend Zach Wheeler, and I figured it would be a great call. They gave him 3 years, 26 mil, so a 42 annual average value. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for Zach Wheeler for 3 years. But hey, that's what you have to do if you want to lock a guy like that up where he is an age for a shorter amount of time. If you don't want to make a long-term commitment, you're just going to have to raise the per year basis for a couple of years. That's what they did, because you know what? Their window is those 3 years, I feel like. But anyway, I think it's a great move. I think Zach Wheeler is a fantastic pitcher, and I think he's going to be very good for those 3 years. I really do. Let's look at the lineup for the Phillies right now. They got Kyle Schwarber leading off the DH, Trey Turner at shortstop, or Bryce Harper, newly appointed first baseman, Nick Castellanos in right field, Alec Boehm at third base, Bryson Stott at second, JT Realmuto at behind the plate, correct English right there, Brandon Marsh in left field, and Johan Rojas in center field. On the bench, they have Christian Pache, Whit Merrifield. That's a great little pickup for them. And Mundo Sosa, and Garrett Stubbs. In the rotation, they have Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez, Taijuan Walker, and Christopher Sanchez. In the bullpen, they have Jose Alvarado, Jeff Hoffman, Gregory Soto, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Matt Strahm, Orion Kerkering, Connor Brogdon, and Spencer Turnbull. Now, I really like this lineup. I really do. What can go right for them to get over that about 85 wins, 85 win projection, basically, by Pecota? They can all do what they did last year. Kyle Schwarber, if he hits bombs, even if he hits below 200, it was a wild year for him. I mean, 47 home runs and a .6 WAR, I think. But I mean, take that WAR with a grain of salt in this situation. I think 47 home runs is tremendous. If he can raise that average, raise that on base percentage just a little bit, you'd love to see it. Let me just fact check his on base percentage real quick. I kind of want to see it. I kind of want to see what it was. 343 on base. I mean, if he hits around 200 with a 350 on base, his OPS plus was 122, OPS of 817. That's a fine season. You take that all day. You take that. Although, I mean, you'd love to see a little bit more in the average department, maybe more base hits. But if he's going to give you 45 bombs, then that is fine. That is fine. Trey Turner, if he can do what he did last year after the ovation, if he can do that over a full year, I mean, that is a potential, that's a top 10 MVP voting situation for sure. Speaking of MVP, if Bryce Harper gives you what he gave you in the second half of the season, that is an MVP season worthy. Absolutely. I think his his OPS was close to 1,000 in the second half of the season. So that is just tremendous. Nick Castellanos, we all know Nick Castellanos can hit the ball. If he hits about 30 home runs, 100 ribbies, solid average, solid on, good on base. Let me just see what he did last year. I want to fact check myself. He had 272 with 29 bombs. His on base was 311 though. I think that's where you want him to get better. You want him to get on base a little bit more. I'm not so much concerned with average. I would much rather have a guy have a better on base percentage. OPS plus is 112. That is, that's fine. He's going to give you some home runs. He's going to drive in runs, which is important. I know average is a thing of the past. I still like average, like I said, but there are definitely things more important than average. On base percentage, in my opinion, being one of them, as well as slugging. Basically, OPS is the first thing I look for nowadays. I just want to get that out there. If you get Nick Castellanos to have an OPS around 800 to 850, that's a huge win. Bryson Stott, if you can get what you got from him last year, 15 home run season, 30 stolen base season, playing great defense at second base, that's a huge win. And JT Realmuto, he had kind of a down year for him. Still a great year as a catcher, but just a down year for him. Worried about the age a little bit. He's going to be 33 this year. And on the mound, if you get what you got from Aaron Nola in the last month and the playoffs during the regular season, that is a fantastic pitcher. Zach Wheeler just giving you what he gives you on a yearly basis. That is a great starter. That's a great one too. Ranger Suarez, Taijuan Walker. I mean, Ranger Suarez, no one hits him in the playoffs. What he did to the Braves in game 1 of the NLDS was spectacular. I believe that was the first time they were shut out at home all year, and it came at the most crucial time for the Phillies. That was fantastic. That was a fantastic outing. The Braves had no answer for him. He's a little bit slept on, in my opinion. I think the back end of the rotation in general is a little bit slept on. Taiwan Walker and Christopher Sanchez are just fine back end of the bullpen or back end of the rotation pieces. And I honestly, speaking of slept on, I think their bullpen's a little bit slept on. Jeff Hoffman looked great last year. Gregory Soto, he's a decent bullpen arm. Sir Anthony Dominguez, we've seen glimpses of him being great. Matt Strom's a solid lefty. Orion Kirkering, he could be the X factor of that bullpen. He was electric in the postseason, has some great stuff. It's going to be interesting to see a full year out of him. We all know what Jose Alvarado is going to give you. He's going to give you an absolute crazy amount of strikeouts. And I've heard Spencer Turnbull looks really good this spring. So if he's a weapon out of the bullpen, that's just an added weapon. I love repeating words, apparently. That's tremendous, though. That is a tremendous bullpen. I think it's a lot. It's slept on. It's slept on. It has the potential to be very, very good. I know they lost Craig Kimbrell, but he is, if you can, I feel like Orion Kirkering is a good little replacement for him for what he gave you as far as like innings, strikeouts, that sort of thing. I know he's not going to be slated to be the closer, but that is still a good bullpen. Good bullpen. What can go wrong? What can go wrong for this Phillies team? I think that age could be a very, very interesting thing because Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Castellanos, JT Realmuto, they're all over 30. I'm not saying age is the end all be all, but regression is more likely after 30 in a lot of cases. And I know they're early 30s. Kyle Schwarber's 31. Bryce Harper's going to be 31. Nick Castellanos 32. But it is something to pay attention to a little bit. And I think that's a good reason why they got Zach Wheeler for the next 3 years, because their window is now. I mean, you can certainly still be in your prime from 30 to 35 as a position player, as a hitter. There's absolutely, you can absolutely do that. And I'm not saying it's an end all be all thing, but it is something to just, think about. It's something to think about. I certainly don't want it to happen. I don't want to see anyone regress whatsoever, because this could be an electric lineup. And excuse me, same thing with the rotation, or specifically Wheeler and Nola. Nola's just going to be, he's going to turn 31 this year, so maybe not as much as an age thing. Plus with pitchers, it's a little bit different. I feel like pitchers age a little bit better into the 30s, into the late 30s, specifically. Most of the time, I want to say. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but just anecdotally from recent memory, by the way the game is played this year, or by the way the game is nowadays, I feel like pitchers age a little bit better than position players, especially in premier positions like shortstop, catcher, outfield. Excuse me. But that's what can go wrong. I hope it doesn't. As far as win total, how many games do the Phillies win? I have a hard time imagining a world where they don't win 90 games right now. I do think that they win 90 games when I look at the lineup, when I look at the potential there. I did have a recent video on my main channel where I had, excuse me, where I did my boldest takes for the upcoming 2024 season, where my Phillies take was probably one of the more wild ones out there. But my bold prediction was that they would finish under 500. Now, I don't think that is going to happen, but it's possible, just like anything is possible in baseball. And the age is what scares me the most. But I still think they're going to win 90 games. It would be very hard for everyone who is over 30 to regress. And that's just not feasible. That's just not how a lot of things work, especially in cases like Bryce Harper. He's going to be hitting bombs until he's like 38. And I mean bombs on a consistent basis until he's 38. And I hope the rest for all of them. Anyway, that's what I think. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know if I should worry about their ages less. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm thinking about it a little too much. It is just that, though. It is just something to think about. Excuse me. Lastly, going over to the Atlanta Braves, where they are projected to win 100.8 games and 61.2 losses. Anyway, last but not least, the Atlanta Braves. Last team in the East, the Braves. The Atlanta Braves projected 100.8 wins, 61.2 losses. They won 104 games last year. 104 games last year, the best regular season total. But that does not mean they're going to win that World Series by any means. I think only once out of the last 7 or 8 years has the best regular season team won the World Series. Who did they lose this offseason? They lost Eddie Rosario, Jesse Chavez, Brad Hand, Colby Allard, Kevin Pillar, Michael Tonkin, Kirby Yates, Ehire Adrianza, and Yanni Chirinos. They brought in Ken Giles, and they brought in Jared Kelnick and David Fletcher, Luis Guillorme. Some good players, man. They brought in Chris Sale, Reynaldo Lopez they're actually thinking of stretching out Reynaldo Lopez to be a starter. Let's look at their lineup from top to bottom. You're looking at Ronald Acuna Jr. In right field, Ozzie Albies at second base, Austin Riley, third base, Matt Olson, first base, Marcelo Zuna at the DH, center fielder Michael Harris, catcher Sean Murphy, left fielder Jared Kelnick, and shortstop Orlando Arcia. In the starting rotation, they're going to have Spencer Strider, Max Fried, Charlie Morton, Chris Sale, and Reynaldo Lopez. Per Fangraphs projection, I know they're battling for the fifth spot of that rotation. They're going to have some guys battling it out. I don't see Reynaldo Lopez being in the rotation. I see him more of a bullpen piece and a starter if someone goes down or they need a spot start somewhere. And in the bullpen, they have Raisel Iglesias, AJ Minter, Joe Jimenez, Pierce Johnson, Tyler Matzik coming back from injury, I believe. Aaron Bummer, they brought in from the White Sox, I forgot to mention. Daysbel Hernandez is fighting for a spot, as well as Jackson Stevens in the bullpen. What can go right for these Braves? Basically doing exactly what they did last year by hitting a ton of home runs. I know there has been an issue so far developing over the last couple of days about Ronald Acuna Jr. His knee has inflammation. They're flying him to LA to get looked at by his doctor. They think he's going to be ready for opening day. I would hate for him to miss any significant time. A player like that is just electric. 40-70 season last year. Just wild. Just wild. It's going to be fun to see if anyone in the league does that ever. It's going to be fun to see. It's going to be really fun to see if anyone in the league does that in the near future. A couple guys out there that I think have the potential to, but that is something for a later date we can talk about. What else has to go right? Sean Murphy having a first half like he did instead of the second half he did last year where he was really, really bad. If he can give you what you got from him in the first month, that could be tremendous. Same thing with Orlando Arcia. He did well enough in the first half to be voted to the All-Star game. Fan voting, whether it's good or bad, is a discussion for another date, but I don't like it. So I guess I just have opened up that discussion, but that's all I'm going to say about it for right now. If Jared Kelnick lives up to, the hype, I don't need him to be the dude that everyone thought he was going to be. I think I saw somewhere that they thought Jared Kelnick could be the next Mike Trout, which is just a ridiculous thing to say about anyone. There's a ridiculous amount of pressure to be put on someone when they say that. But Jared Kelnick, if Jared Kelnick does what he did in the first couple months last year and he develops a little bit more, he's only 24 years old. He's going to turn 25 later this year. He still has a ton of potential. Love to see what he can do this year. And all that happens, like, this lineup is just amazing from top to bottom. Your weaker hitters are Kelnick and Arcia. Michael Harris had an amazing year after the slow start he had last year. You got a solid backup catcher in Travis d'Arnaud who can fill in. David Fletcher, Luis Guillorme, Forrest Wall, all decent pieces off the bench. Also, the rotation. Spencer Strider developed a curveball. Wow. That is just, he already had 2 amazing pitches. If that curveball is a good pitch, then he's going to be even more dangerous. Max Fried, Charlie Morton, if they stay healthy. Same thing with Chris Sale. If they stay healthy for the majority of the year, they have a great top end of the rotation. That's a great rotation in general. And if they can get anything decent out of guys like, if they really do plan on using Reynaldo Lopez to start in the 5th spot of that rotation, which I don't think is likely. I think it's going to be more of a Bryce Elder, who was an all-star last year, but he was just miserable in the second half. Maybe an AJ Smith-Shawver is back at the 5th spot of that rotation. If they get anything consistent from that 5th starter, which was a huge issue for them last year, that is a huge win for that team. and could propel them to over 100 wins again. And they did that last year. It's hard to say if their lineup can keep it going, because like, where do you go from there? Where do you go from there? They tied the home run record. So they either have to tie a record or break it to progress as a lineup. As far as the power department, the home run department, there's more ways you can improve as a team other than hitting home runs, but home runs are not a bad thing. So it would just take a lot for them to do better as a whole. Like, where do you go from there? So I think the pitching side of things, having a healthier rotation. Charlie Morton missed some time. Max Fried missed a lot of time. Chris Sale always has the potential to miss time, but he finished last year healthy, and he had the first healthy offseason he's had in quite some time. And the age could be a factor here. Max Fried is 30, which is not really that old as a pitcher. Like I was talking about with the Phillies age sort of situation, pitchers just age differently. Chris Sale is 35. Charlie Morton's 40 though. So that could be a thing. That could be a thing. And what could go wrong for this team though? What could go wrong for this team? Ronald Acuna Jr.'s knee actually being an issue. That could be a major thing going wrong for your MVP of the team, MVP of the league. That's a huge thing. Matt Olson kind of doesn't have as great of a year as last year. He had 54 home runs last year. He's always had like the kind of up and down situation, but he's entering his prime. Hopefully, or he's already been in his prime, of course, but hopefully he doesn't do the whole up and down situation like we've seen a little bit from him. Sean Murphy not being as good as the first half Sean Murphy. If it's closer to the second half Sean Murphy, that's a very bad thing, although he's still going to be amazing with the glove. If Jared Kelenic doesn't start off well, if Orlando Arcia doesn't have a good year, as good of a year as he had last year, those could be major issues. As well as Max Fried being hurt. He could get hurt again. You would hate for him to miss any significant amount of time. And if he gets hurt, if he gets hurt and Chris Sale both get hurt and Charlie Morton's out with an injury, that is a huge depth situation in that rotation that could go wrong. Of course you don't want to see it. Of course you don't want to see that. You never want to see anyone get hurt, but it just it happens all the time. It happens all the time. And in a lot of cases, it's unrealistic to expect your starting rotation not to get hit with an injury at some point. Now, how severe that injury is going to be up in the air, you don't know, but someone's probably going to miss some time at some point. But I think the whole reason they brought in Chris Sale was hopefully they have him for a healthy postseason run, which this team is primed for. They're in their window right now, and their window is looking to last a very long time. As far as wins, how many wins do I think they get? How many wins? I don't know what I want to say for this. 100 is just it's so tough to win 100 games, especially when just there's so much randomness in baseball. There's so much randomness, but they have one of the best teams in baseball, if not the best balanced team. I know the Dodgers, you can like absolutely say the Dodgers are the best team in baseball, and you're probably right. But I think Atlanta is right up there. The balanced rotation, or not the balanced rotation, the balanced lineup from top to bottom, I feel like is just insane. And their starting rotation, their pitching staff as a whole, when healthy, is right up there. It's right up there as one of the better, if not one of the best, as far as the starting rotation goes right now. But you know what? I'm going to say they win exactly 100 games. I think exactly 100 is a solid spot for them. They won 104 last year. It's just tough it's so hard for them to be as good as they were last year. I think there's going to be a little bit of regression in the win column. I think 100 games is right. I mean, like if you regress to 100 games, is that really a loss though? Is that really a loss? But I'm going to say 100 games. But anyway, I think that is going to do it for me, this first episode of the Inside Pitch podcast. Make sure to follow if you like what you hear, like what you see. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Make sure to go check out my main channel on YouTube, The Show Noob. Do a lot more like high edited baseball videos of lately. Oh my God. Happy birthday to Nick Castellanos, by the way. I didn't even notice that until just now, but happy birthday, Nick Castellanos. Um, great to have a March birthday. Great to have a March birthday. But anyway, make sure to subscribe, follow. Let me know what your thoughts are on everything we've discussed. Let me know where you agree or disagree. I'm absolutely open to having discussions. I'm definitely looking to grow my knowledge. I've just been starting this IRL baseball sort of situation over the last couple months, and I'm by no means an expert in a lot of things. So I just would love to have discussions, would love to keep expanding my knowledge. So let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time. We'll go over the NL Central. We'll just run through the divisions. I'm excited to talk about that. Until next time, y'all have a great day. Later.